Kia ora everybody, welcome back to another episode of Yarns with Marns. This is the third episode of the year, and today's episode is a Q&A podcast. I put a question box on my story on my Instagram and said for people to ask me questions, and I would answer 5 of them on the podcast. And these are going to be quite a regular one, maybe once every few weeks or once a month type of episodes. Just whatever just people want to know. I've got a lot of new people join my platform in the last few months, so a lot of people don't know much about me, and then a lot of people have been following me for a while and want to know more or something like that. So I just left it open. Anyone could ask me any question, and I answered a few of them on my Instagram, and then I said I would answer 5 on here. And so if I didn't get around to your question, I'm sorry. There was a lot of them, which is, I guess, a really good thing. It's a good thing that people are engaged with my content and stuff like that. So there's so many questions to get through. I could only pick 5, and I picked 5 that could hopefully provide the most value for everyone listening today. And I picked 5 that resonated with me, and the ones that I could get some good in-depth answers about. And hopefully if you can get any value out of this podcast just from any of my answers, then that's a win for me, and that's a win for you. It's a win-win, because I get something out of it by knowing that this content is helping people, and then you guys get something out of it from learning something from me. So thank you to everyone who asked questions. So honestly, some great questions. If you follow me on Instagram, you would have saw a lot of the answers on there. But so I'm just going to jump straight into it, and the first question is a question that I picked because a lot of people ask me this question, and they ask me how I got into spirituality and how I am where I am, how did I get to where I am today, and things like that. And so the question was, what's the most impactful thing to have happened to you that has shaped the way you have grown? And in short answer, I got injured back in 2019. So I don't even know if a lot of people know me as an athlete, because I've been posting all the self-development stuff a lot lately, but I was playing basketball. I play basketball, and in 2019, basketball has been my dream since I was maybe 13, 14, to play professionally, to go to college and stuff like that. In 2019, I was playing for the Manawatu Jets in the New Zealand League here in New Zealand, and 6 games into the season, I got injured. I ruptured my ACL in my knee. I was out for the year. I ended up having the whole next year off too, and I had to get surgery, and it was just it was a really rough time. And that's what I would put my finger on as the most impactful thing to have happened to me that has shaped the way I've grown, because it was so frustrating. You have to be really patient and think about it. When something is your whole life, basketball was my whole life, and I was playing basketball every single day, and then to get injured and have it all taken away from me was rough. It was rough mentally, spiritually. It was a rough grind. When I finally had surgery and had to do my rehab, it was such a tough grind. But during that process, during the time out of the game, it helped me learn a lot about myself. And during that time, I went through a lot of rough lapses mentally. I fell into depression and anxiety and stuff like that. And so I really had to find a way to claw myself out. And people always ask me, how did you get into spirituality? And I don't know if it's something that you go into intentionally, because I didn't mean to kind of go down this road. It just happened. I mean, I got injured. I was mentally unwell, spiritually unwell, emotionally unwell, physically as well, because I was injured. And so I had to do this stuff. I had to find ways to better my life and not rely on basketball. And on that too, I think I defined myself. At the time, I defined myself as an athlete, and strictly an athlete, and only an athlete. So then when I got injured, it was like I'd put my whole identity into being an athlete, that I didn't really know who I was anymore. Like, damn, I'm not playing basketball. What do I do? So I had to do all the inner work and what they call shadow work. And it dug up a lot of past childhood traumas, which is another question I'll get into soon. And it just, I guess when people ask me, how did you get into this spirituality? I didn't choose to, but the universe chose for me to. It decided that in 2019 it was the right time for me to do the shadow work, and for me to heal some things that had happened, and to focus on bettering my life mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. So that is definitely the most impactful thing to have happened to me, and it's impactful in lots of positive ways too, because I get to do things like this. I wouldn't have started a podcast or started vlogging, or maybe wouldn't have had as big a presence on social media, because since I was out of basketball for so long, I took time to, focus on posting more and documenting my life. And that's the whole reason I started YouTube, was to document my journey through rehab and stuff like that. And a lot of other good things have come from it too. Lots of speaking opportunities. I've spoken at schools and at prize givings and events to share my story through injury and hopefully motivate and inspire other athletes, that when people write you out and say that your career is over or you'll never be the same player again, that you don't have to let that define you, and you can use those words as fuel to your fire. And that's exactly what I did. And I came back healthier than I was before I was injured, and with a whole new mindset, and developed a whole new kind of world for myself. And so, how to get over insecurities. Question number 2, how to get over insecurities. I think the main way to get over insecurities, and this is for me personally, is to embrace them and to accept that you have them. And I got this off Ice from YKTR again, and he said, if you watch the last battle of 8 Mile, where B-Rabbit, Eminem, he's rapping and he goes first, and he calls himself out pretty much. He says everything negative about himself. He talks about living in a trailer with his mum. He talks about people messing with his girl and stuff like that. And so these may be seen as insecurities to people, but what he did was he embraced those insecurities and he talked about them openly and things like that. And so I heard a little saying one time, and it said, when you just accept yourself for the way you are, or when you accept things for the way they are, no one can hold it against you, or something like that. Or when you love yourself for the way you are, no one can hold that stuff against you. So how to get over insecurities is to embrace and to not be ignorant and ignore that, and just embrace and accept that you're insecure about this, and find how you can better yourself in this way. So for example, if I was insecure in a relationship, maybe my self-love is not where it needs to be. Maybe I could start loving myself more. If I'm insecure and feel like people could love me more, or my partner is not loving me as I would like to, then maybe that's a sign that my self-love is not where it needs to be. And if that makes sense to you. So embrace it, and don't be ignorant to healing. That's what I always tell people, is don't be ignorant to that kind of stuff, and just accept that you're insecure about it and find ways to get over it. For example, my nose. I've always been like a little bit, I'm going to switch back. My voice. I've always been insecure about my voice. I've always thought it was too soft, or that's what society has made me think, is that my voice is too soft. But when I embrace it and I use my voice on platforms like podcasts, and the more that I speak, the more that I start to love it, and the more that I embrace it, the more that I start to love it. And so my advice for how to get over insecurities is to embrace your insecurities and accept them. And I put question number 3, I put this one in here because it's really relevant for the time we're in. Obviously, if you know some of the things that I faced personally, 1 month ago today, lost one of my really good friends, as I mentioned in another podcast. And so this question is, how do you deal with grief? And to be honest, I don't know the answer. Like, I don't know the exact answer, but this is how I deal with grief. And I thought I could put this question in because I wanted to share my thoughts on life and not the afterlife, but just my thoughts on that. So how do you deal with grief? It's really hard, to be honest. I lost my pop back in 2019, and that was extremely hard. And then losing my friend again at the end of last year was again extremely hard. So it's not like the second time it got any easier. I don't even know if it's something that gets easier with time, or maybe it is something that gets easier with time, but I don't know if it's something that gets easier every time. And so I'm quite fortunate that I haven't had to deal with too many passings or deaths in my short life so far, so I'm grateful for that. But what's helped me is by understanding and thinking about what that person would want best. So for example, I have allowed myself some time since my mate passed. I allowed myself some time to just chill out, do nothing, no routine, kind of just be a bit lazy, I guess is a not the best word to use, but lazy. But it's good to allow yourself to do that and not beat yourself up about it. If you think about it, we've lost such a valuable part of our lives when we lose someone. It's such a valuable part of our lives that when we lose them, we can't beat ourselves up about getting down and sad and lying in bed all day for a certain amount of time, because it's a big loss. But what has helped me is by thinking about what that person would want. So when I lost my pop, I thought about I'm just gonna lounge around and chill and do stuff, but I thought about what my pop would want and what he would want me to do, and he'd want me to better myself and yes, take some time off and give myself some time to grieve, but also not do that for too long. And there's no timeline. It's not you should get 1 week to lie in bed. There's not 2 weeks. This stuff is serious stuff, and it hits people in different ways. A month later, it still doesn't feel real. Lost my pop 2 and a bit years ago, and it's still tough. I miss him a lot. So there's no real timeline to healing with grief, but I thought I'd share my thoughts, which kind of helps to keep my mind at ease. And I'm in a much more spiritual, or maybe even just a better space now than I was 2 years ago when my pop died. And the difference between then and now is that I have these beliefs and this kind of spiritual aspect to me that about what I believe about the afterlife. And what I believe is that life is eternal. So we never, when our physical body dies, our spirit doesn't die. Our spirit lives on, and I don't believe this is our first life. I believe we have lived before this. I believe we will live after this. And so what helps me to keep my mind at ease is that the person that we have lost, although their physical body has left this realm, this earth, this planet, their spirit will live on. And so that helps me keep my mind at ease, knowing that these people aren't, these spirits and these souls aren't actually that far away from us. They're here with us, and although we can't physically be with them and touch them, they are here with us spiritually, and they are going to spiritually guide us, our guardian angels, and we may meet them again in another life and in another universe. So that gives me hope, and that's how I help deal with grief. And I believe that when our physical body dies, our soul goes to goes to a council, and then it's sent to a new universe, or maybe the same universe, and whatever personality traits that person's soul possesses, that it's sent to a universe that requires someone like that. So if you lose someone and they are extremely funny, that might be because another universe needs that humor there to enlighten people and stuff like that. So it's really heavy stuff to think about. It's not easy to think about, and I know that this might hit close to home for a lot of people, but for me personally, what helps to keep my mind at ease and to help, what helps me to deal with grief is just knowing that although their physical body has left, their soul and their spirit will live on and will always be here to guide us. This one is, how do you deal with childhood traumas and your triggers throughout life? And this is a great question because it's really started to come up within the last, I'd say 6 months or so as I've been on this healing journey. Someone asked me, do you think healing takes time? And I think healing is one of those things that kind of never stops. Like there's always something to work on. And so I've been working on all these things throughout the years and all this stuff. But and then so within the last 6 months, this new one has come up where I've got to kind of heal these childhood traumas and triggers throughout life. A lot of my childhood traumas and triggers throughout life have just been there for me unconsciously. I've never thought about them. I never paid too much attention to why I acted this way or why I did that. And now I see it that a lot of the stuff that happened to me as a kid, a lot of the stuff wasn't like too heavy stuff, but even just the way I've been shaped with thinking and stuff like that, growing up. And if someone I saw did this, if a teacher did this at school, or if my older brothers did this, or my sister did this, or my parents did this, I've noticed how I also picked up on those traits too. And so the way I deal with this is by finding what resonates with me and resonates with my values and my morals, and keeping those traits and those little triggers, keeping some of them, the ones that I do want to keep, but also thinking about one day when it's time for me to be a father and it's time for me to pass on to my kids. And the way that I heal and deal is by thinking, would I want to pass this on to my children too? Would I want my kids to grow up believing this kind of stuff? And it's really it's really heavy stuff. And I did a childhood regression back in November with one of my good friends, Tegan, who I've connected with over social media. Haven't met in person yet, but and she helped me with this childhood regression, which is where she guides you, or the person guides you back to a time in your childhood, and you connect with your inner child, because I believe that our inner child is always within us. It's not like that was a childhood phase when I was a child, because our inner child is always with us, and our inner child is us. So we are always our inner child, and we always have that inner child traits and stuff like that in us. So I went back and I visited my 4-year-old self, and I talked with him, and I hugged him, and I supported him and made him feel loved. And I talked to him about the things that I'm doing now that he doesn't like me doing, or the things that I'm ignoring that he doesn't like me ignoring, or the things that I haven't healed that he thinks I should heal. And it helped me a lot, because it made me realize that our inner child is always within us. It's not, it is something that happened in the past, but it's still us. It's still part of us. It's still part of our journey. And so I learned a lot of great things and valuable things about, and like one thing that came up was unconditional love. As a child, I really just wanted and needed, and that's something I think children need, is unconditional love, no conditions to it. There was times as a kid where I felt like to be loved I had to look a certain way or be a certain way, or for example, as an athlete, play a certain way, have a good game. If I didn't have a good game, I felt unloved and stuff like that. So it's really just kind of unlearning a lot of the things that we've learnt, and that's how I deal with childhood traumas and triggers throughout life, is doing the inner work and the going inside and realizing, okay, I'm like this. Why am I like this? Or whenever something like this comes up, a difficult conversation, and I feel weird inside, why do I feel weird inside? Is it because I often struggled to speak up as a kid? I often felt outspoken as a teenager or something like that. And so when things come up, I try to put my finger on them and say, well, why am I doing this? Why do I act like this? And when we act out of spirit, we do what's best for our soul. And so I hope that makes sense with how I deal with childhood traumas and triggers throughout life, because this has really helped me, and it's really valuable. And if you ever have the chance to do a childhood regression or visit a past time in your life, I would definitely recommend it, because it's been a big part of my journey so far. And the last question, and I left this one till last because it really resonates with me a lot right now, where I am in my life right now. And so what is your biggest aspiration this year? What is your biggest aspiration this year? And my biggest aspiration this year, and what I'm aspiring to be and do, is to be my authentic self. And so what that means to me is being me, unapologetically me, and people can accept that, or they cannot accept that. And the thing that really the thing that really resonates with me and has been important, and the reason this kind of came up accidentally. I didn't sit down and write down what is my aspiration or my intentions for this year, but I was sitting there the other day, and I came up with my intention for the year, just because I listen to my intuition, my third eye. I trust the signs. Anything that pops up on my mind, I trust that it's there for a reason. And so this one popped up, and it was about being my authentic self. And so my intention for this year, and my biggest aspiration for this year, is to be my authentic self. And what I realize is that a lot of people are going to love this. People are going to love you for being your authentic self. There's so many people out there that are waiting for you to be your authentic self. And if you flip that, there's also people that aren't going to like you for your authentic self. And I found that in my way. I found that people don't like me just for being me, and that's got nothing to do with me, but got everything to do with them. I've always thought about it like this: if people are going to love me, or if people are going to hate me, or if people are going to disagree with me, at least that they are doing it. At least they are loving my authentic self, or at least they are disagreeing with my authentic self, and it's not a show. It's not an act to try to put on to get people to like me. And it honestly is a constant work on, because growing up as a little bit of a people pleaser, if I'm being honest, and trying to win people over, and especially in this space too, when you're trying to grow a brand and trying to grow, just grow as an individual, it's easy to step out of being your authentic self and try to get people to like you and try to fit the mold. But I would rather people support me for being me, and I would rather people not support me for being me. And just in general, not even in terms of support or anything, I'd rather people know me as being my authentic self, and not trying to be anything other than my authentic self. So my biggest aspiration this year is showing up as me, being my authentic self. And yeah, if that doesn't resonate with people, then that's okay. I think it'll bring me peace knowing that people know me as my authentic self, and they know me as who I am. So it's easy to fall in the trap of getting people to like you for and not being your authentic self, if that makes sense. So yeah, my biggest aspiration this year is to show up as my authentic self and to just be me, because people love me. And this is what I wrote in my notes the other day for everyone out there listening. If people don't accept you for who you are, I promise you that there are people out there that love you for exactly who you are. They don't want you to put on an act. They don't want you to please them. They will love you exactly how you are. And it's so cool when you find those people, your soul tribe, when you find those people that just love you for being unapologetically you. And that's been a big self-reminder for me, is that there are people that love me, and there are people that love me for being me. And so, yeah, that's our Q&A podcast for today. There's 5 great questions. Was that 5? That was 6. I'm just looking back now. I know you guys are listening like, damn, that was 6. Oh no, that was 5. So that was 5 questions. That's our Q&A podcast for today. Thank you so much for asking these questions. Maybe this might be a weekly thing, it might be a fortnightly thing, maybe a monthly thing. So you're definitely going to see more types of these videos and more types of these episodes. Thank you so much to everyone that asked questions, and you really help keep the content going. And I know a lot of people get a lot of value out of this, so you guys are helping me out and helping everyone else out in a way too. So thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and I will see you guys in the next episode of Yarns with Marns. Thank you for tuning in. Peace and love.